Capital what? Capital gains. So capital gains, you buy a property, maybe you put a little money into it, you immediately turn around and sell it, and your profit is called capital gains. Now, when you're looking at capital gains, your house, if you sell your house, you make a profit on your residence. That's also capital gains. There's not a whole lot of analysis that goes along with capital gains. Yes, there's definitely things you need to know. You need to do your research. There's a lot you need to find out about. But there's not a lot of number analysis because you're not going to necessarily hold this for the long term. All right? So that's the capital gains. If you're buying stocks, a lot of times you buy a stock low, you sell it high. That's capital gains. All right? So that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, and for those of you who have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad know this well, one day I was driving in my car, and Robert called up and he said, Kim, what are you passionate about? And I'm like, Robert, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're calling and asking what I'm passionate about. He goes, yeah, I got to know. What are you passionate about? And I thought about it for a minute, and I said 2 words. I said, cash flow. He said, yes, I knew it. And I am. I'm very passionate about cash flow because it's freedom. Now, what cash flow is, basically, if you're buying a property, you get your rent. Maybe it's a single family. Maybe it's an apartment building. You collect your rent. You pay all your expenses. You pay your loan or your mortgage. And at the end of the month, you have a cash flow. Might be positive, could be negative. Do we want negative cash flow properties? No, we're looking for positive cash flow properties. We're looking for properties that every month you will be getting a positive cash flow, and again, ultimately leads to your freedom because then you no longer have to work because your money is working for you. So today we're going to be talking about cash flow properties. Any questions on that? Is everybody clear on the difference between capital gains and cash flow? Everybody clear? Anybody not clear? Okay, great. So that's the type of property we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to analyze. And now we're going to start getting into a little bit of the analysis. I'm going to break it down, make it really simple. It's going to be very simplified. Some of this might sound too simple, but for those of you who have bought the product and are watching this on video, there's actually on the program, there is a more detailed analysis that you can study as well. But the key points here that I'm going to point out, I think there'll be some very fine distinctions that you'll be making. And again, you'll start to see how the numbers tell the story. All right? So, good deal, bad deal. There's 3 components to any real estate deal. Doesn't matter if it's Trump Plaza in New York, or if it's a single family house that you're renting out. There's 3 components. The first one is what? First component, when analyzing a deal, you've got to find out what's your income. So the first component is income, the rent that you're receiving. Okay, the main component of income is what? The main component of income is what? Your rent. Who pays your rent? Your tenants. So the key to finding good income properties, and the key to the income section, you say, the question is, how do I increase the income, right? How do I increase the income of this property? So if the key component is rent, if your tenants pay your rent, the key to the income section is knowing how to find and keep great tenants. Correct? That's really all it comes down to. Yes, there's other factors, but if you can find and keep great tenants, that will make your life so much easier because also not only do they pay the rent on time, but they also will recommend your property to other people as well, especially if it's in multiple unit. So the key to income is how to find and keep great tenants. And if I can just do a quick commercial plug, this is a very good friend of mine, Ken McElroy. He is also my investment partner along with Robert. And he put this property together, how to increase the income on your property. And I'll tell you, he and I sat in this studio and we talked about the little things that you can do to increase the income, to reduce expenses, to make your property operate more optimally. So how to increase your income is great. It's all about property management. And for those of you who are doing property, you know that management is really a key. And finding good property managers is sometimes tough to do. So one of the keys is great property management. So I recommend this product. Okay, so you've got your income. You've got your tenants paying your income. What's the next component of any real estate deal? Hello? You got it. Expenses. And I used to think the question to ask is, how can I reduce expenses? Well, anybody with half a brain can cut expenses. But a lot of times what happens is they cut expenses on a property and they also cut the value of their property. You know, maybe we just won't pave the driveway. Maybe we won't paint. Maybe we'll cut down on the landscape, and all of a sudden the property doesn't look so good and people don't want to come to the property. They don't want to live at the property. So it's not how do I cut expenses. The question is, how do I spend money most effectively to increase the value of my property? Got it? I'll give you an example. We have a property and we wanted to put a lot of trees in. It was a little bit stark, and in Phoenix it can look very dry if there's not a lot of green and foliage. So we wanted to put a lot of trees in, and our property manager says, no, that'll increase your water bill. Your water bill's going to go through the roof. I'm like, let's give it a shot. So we planted all these trees. Yes, the water bill went through the roof, but the property looked so green and so lush and cool in Phoenix, which is a great thing, that all of a sudden people just driving by used to stop and ask if there was a unit available. We now have waiting lists on that property, just from planting trees. So again, it's how do you spend the money most effectively to increase the value of your property? And of course, then you can increase your rent, which increases your what? Income, and which increases the whole value of your property, and which of course then increases your cash flow. Okay? So you've got income, you've got expenses. The third component is your debt or your financing. And the very simple question is, how can I arrange for the best financing terms for my property? Now, lately with the interest rates so low, we had a lot of people who were refinancing their homes, or a lot of people moving out of apartments to buy their homes because the interest was so cheap. Made a big change, and now those interest rates are starting to rise again, so we're going to see a shift. But the whole key is, how do I get the best financing? There's all sorts of ways to finance a property. And a lot of people who say, I don't have good credit, or I don't think I can qualify for a loan, again, not a good excuse. It won't cut with me. It won't cut with me. When I first started investing, it wasn't until about 6 years that I actually went to a traditional bank for a loan. I did seller financing. I did all kinds of creative financing. They had what was called assumable loans, which we still have today. Just have to ask if it's available, where you just assume the loan on the property. There's all sorts of ways to finance a property. And here's one little key. Often somebody will find a property and they'll go to a bank and they'll say, here's my numbers, I'd like a loan. The bank says, nope, can't have a loan. So they walk away and they go, darn, I can't get financing for this. I just can't get financing. And they give up. Well, they didn't know that that specific bank doesn't lend on duplexes. They lend on commercial properties. So you've got to find the institution, the bank, the lender that's going to lend on the type of property that you have, and that's where mortgage brokers can come in very, very handy. Are there any mortgage brokers in the audience? Yes, great. You might want to talk to these people because their job is to set you up with the right lender for your property. And I don't know how to do that, but they do. So that can save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration and a lot of discouragement, because every property has a loan available to it. You just got to find it. So again, finding the best financing terms. So any real estate deal, income, expenses, and debt. That's really the three things you've got to be concerned with. It's not any more complicated than that. Okay, so again,